Well, let's talk to Siobhan Craven-Robbins, a celebrity wedding planner. Her weddings include Joan Collins. Also, Beth Gardner, an American journalist who's covered many major events in the US. Beth, I'll come to you first. It strikes me, is this about Chelsea or is it about her parents?
Well, you know, I think the Clintons have worked very hard to make it about Chelsea. Obviously, the tremendous public interest stems from the fact that the Clintons' personal lives have been in the spotlight almost as long as their political lives have. One thing that Bill and Hillary Clinton have always been credited with, I think even by some of their greatest critics, is the way that they have protected Chelsea's privacy through the years, from those earliest days when she was a 12-year-old in the public spotlight to up until today. You know, I think Americans have been fascinated by her. They feel a great fondness, I think, and admiration for her right across the political spectrum. I think people recall, you know, seeing her as a very gawky 12-year-old when Bill Clinton accepted the Democratic nomination way back in 1992. They saw her keep her dignity as best she could through those terrible months of the Monica Lewinsky scandal, a very public humiliation for her and her family. And they've watched her grow into someone who is, by all accounts, a very poised, articulate and intelligent young woman. So I think there's a great admiration for her. There's always a great fascination with the Clinton family. The America's Royals comparison, I'm not so sure about. I think they're a little more contentious than the royal family here, who purport to be above politics.
Well, Siobhan, I want to ask you, assuming then, as many people are, this is America's royal family, where does one start in arranging a wedding? I mean, one of the main points here seems to be that they want it to be as secret as possible, but also that it has to have the security that goes along with the president.
Well, that's right. It's not just about who's getting married, it's also who's going to be attending the wedding as well. So security will have been a considerable cost to them and something that they would have had to prepare for quite a bit in advance. I would imagine that security has been on site for well over a week, looking out for paparazzi notorious for digging holes into the ground and living in those for a few days prior to the wedding. So I would have thought that would have been quite a considerable expense to them. And then other ways, I mean, whenever we do celebrity weddings, there are ways of keeping it out of the press, booking things under pseudonyms and other sort of press dodging tactics, as we call them, which I wouldn't necessarily give away. So there are ways to keep it private.
Which things do you, as a celebrity planner, look forward to most? Are we talking about the dress, the costs, the marquees, the decorations, the flowers? What's the most important?
Well, the most important thing is obviously the ceremony, the fact that they're getting married. But all aspects of a wedding are exciting. Certainly the dress is very exciting and fun to be involved in. As a wedding planner, it tends to be all about sort of the reception and the work that goes into that. And this has been a considerable build, as we've seen. So there will have been a lot of satisfaction in pulling that all together and seeing it look great, as I'm sure it will.
Beth, you've talked about this evolution from what was a shy tomboy in the White House, I guess you could call her, to a confident, assured bride. What you haven't told us about is the man. Let's talk about the groom.
Well, Mark Mizvinsky, he's 32, an investment banker, formerly of Goldman Sachs, interestingly, now works for a hedge fund. The two of them have known each other since they were teenagers. They met through their parents, I suppose you could say, at Renaissance Weekend, which the Clintons made famous. It was a sort of schmoozy intellectual gathering, which they and many other prominent families at that time went to every New Year's weekend. They fell out of touch for quite a few years and recently reconnected, I think 3 or 4 years ago. He is from a political family as well, also touched by scandal. His father, both parents were both Democratic congresspeople. Mother, interestingly, lost her seat very shortly after voting for Bill Clinton's budget in, I think it was 1994. Father recently did a few years in federal prison on fraud charges. In the Clintons' view, I don't know whether that's better or worse than marrying into a Republican family, but definitely a political family, Democratic family. So you know, there's been some sort of comment to suggest that they have that in common, and you know, having to sort of deal with their parents' high-profile lives may have been something that they share.
Very interesting. Siobhan, we've just shown some helicopter shots of people trying to look at the marquees. There's a no-fly zone over the area. I mean, pictures will come out, won't they?
I don't know. It depends how tight the security is. I mean, you'd hope they'll probably release an official picture after the wedding because, as you said earlier, I think America's very fond of Chelsea. They've seen her grow up from a young child at the White House to a very poised and polished young woman. But nevertheless, it is a private affair. But having the no-fly zone should certainly help avoid there being any shots of the wedding.
Interesting. Siobhan Craven-Robbins and Beth Gardner, we thank you both very much indeed.